Welcome to If This Bar Could Talk, a podcast about bartenders and the stories they have to tell. We'll learn about their creative process, their favorite cocktails, as well as the storied history of cocktails, spirits, and bars. I'm your host, Leanne Sims, along with my partner in crime, Blair Beavers, and producer Greg Hansberry. Our guests tonight are part of a crew at Denmark on High, a modern Euro-style cocktail venue in the Short North Arts District of Columbus, Ohio, offering dynamic cocktails and exquisite small plates. Garry White and Francisco Luttecke, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much.
So, you guys, I said you're part of a crew because you have a large crew. How many people do you have at
I don't know.
Denmark?
I mean, there's 8, 9 of us. I don't know how large that is, but
How many are bartenders?
pretty much all of it.
All of them?
Yeah, I mean, we have a little subtle designations. Some people kind of end up specializing more in cocktailing. But I mean, really, we primarily sell drinks, so everybody gets a little bit of mixology or their hands in the cocktail glass a little bit.
Well, that's a great thing about Denmark on High. If you haven't been there, get over there, first of all. But second of all, it doesn't matter who is behind the bar. You're always going to get a consistently good cocktail. But let's start with you, Garry, because you're
Sure.
the heart and soul of Denmark. You started Denmark, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it is my little baby.
Your baby. When did it start?
March of 2014, so we're coming on 5 years.
Wow.
So just a little under right now. After the first of the year, we'll be 5 years old.
Okay. And you are also known as El Gato.
Yes.
How did that start?
That is, a couple of different things came together all at the same time. Number one, I have a love of cats, really all animals. I own or have a large collection of animals at my house, including chickens. But anyway, that's another story. I had love of cats. I worked in a kitchen that mostly had Hispanic staff. My last name is White. They got to calling me the White Tiger. That eventually got shortened into the Cat. The name kind of stuck. At the same time, I was doing a lot of DJing around and happened to do a lot of like scratching. So the name El Gato just kind of fit with my music persona that I was developing at the time. So I started performing music under that name. So then I just kind of continued that once I started.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. So the many layers of El Gato. Yeah. So I did not know that. I knew that you're a trained chef.
Yes.
You are a wonderful artist.
Well, thank you.
And now I know that you are also a DJ.
I spent my entire morning making beats and scratching around. Yeah, I'm working on a new album as well. I mean, I've always, I like to make things. I've always kind of considered myself a maker. So I've always had my fingers in all kinds of forms of creativity. It's been my kind of personal desire from as long as I can remember to find a way to be able to support myself through my creativity. And I was lucky enough to be able to find Denmark come across this great project that enables me to use a lot of my different interests and kind of pull them in together into a cohesive whole. So, yeah.
Wow. And so Denmark on High, it really is a reflection of your creativity. Your abilities and your knowledge as a chef certainly lend itself to the fabulous cocktail menu that you have, which if you haven't been there, everything in red, highlighted in red, which is a good part of the menu, is house-made stuff. So you're like sous videing stuff and just you're truly a farm to glass cocktail bar.
Well, yeah, I mean, we try to be. I kind of, when I stepped back behind the bar after being a chef for years, I just kind of started, I had this idea that, if everything was laden in prep and you could get all these different flavors through all these different techniques, and I was learning a lot about canning and jarring and making my own bitters and those kind of stuff, and really making bitters and mason jars is what initially interested me in the cocktail world and gin. So once I figured out that I can make my own bitters, I was hooked. And then I started figuring out how quickly I could manipulate flavors by just adding little drops of stuff. And then I started tinkering around with cocktails. That was probably about 8 or 9 years ago.
How does one make bitters?
Well, it's just an infusion that is a high proof liquor of some kind. It can be any different base. The higher the proof, the better. You're basically trying to get flavors out of stuff. But you use bittering agents primarily. So a lot of roots, barks, and those kind of things end up being the bittering ingredients. And then other kind of herbs and different things along those nature are added to add to the flavor. What we do is put all of those things together inside of a mason jar, high proof liquor, seal that off, put it into a sous vide at 135 degrees for about 2 hours. That drastically reduces the amount of time that the infusion takes. A normal infusion is about a month to 2 months. A lot of times bitters can be up to 6 weeks or even 2 months that you kind of let those items steep in there. Because of the even heat that sous vide provides, you're able to kind of turn those around really quickly. And that's one of the secrets that we have at Denmark is using that technique. We've been able to have all of those items that are written in red because we don't have to think a month or 2 months out in production of them. Mm-hmm. We can think a day out in production of them, which makes it a lot easier to go about.
Sure. So, Francisco.
Yes.
How did you get to Denmark on high?
I got to Denmark on high in kind of not a super roundabout way. I was really into cocktails, and I wanted to try my hand at basically having a place where I'd be incentivized. Well, wanted to try my hand at the actual business of bartending, so actually being behind the bar and having to, make a drink with a modicum of speed, precision. And then to see that side of it, and then also be incentivized to develop cocktails and work on stuff. Something that I'd think that as a home aficionado or bartender, like you're not really incentivized to kind of burn up your supply by infusions that may or may not work. So I'd kind of gotten to a place where I'd worked my way through a couple cocktail books, PDT and Death and Company, and I'd kind of made every drink in those books that I felt could feasibly be made with something that was available in state, or with something that if I made a batch of it, it's in several recipes as opposed to just one or two. And I figured I'd love to maybe try my hand at making drinks like this and then learning the industry. And so I kind of went around to a couple spots that I thought might fit. And Denmark was one of them. And Garry was nice enough to give me a stage. And I started bar backing, which is kind of where I wanted to start, because I think you always want to start from the ground up. You don't want to skip any steps. And bar backed for a while, worked on drinks, and now I'm bartending. So
somebody told me that you're actually an attorney?
Yeah, I'm a lawyer.
Okay. So you're an attorney. Are you still practicing as an attorney?
I'm a practicing full-time attorney. I'm a public defender.
That's kind of like a superhero gig, right?
I don't know about that, but I think it is maybe like an alter ego. I mean, it's something that I think Garry hit it on the head. There's an enormous amount of creativity that you can put into a drink. There's an enormous amount of exploration you can put into a drink, whether it's like a culture, a theme, an homage. You can do all kinds of stuff like that with drinks. And I think that in the law, I think there's not a lot of creativity. You're a little bit restrained. You're a little bit hamstrung with what the state of the law is.
Because they're laws.
Right, right. And I think also... I guess a good way I like to put it is you have a lot of control over a cocktail. You can really control the product that you put in front of someone. I think as an attorney, there's a lot of control that you have to cede to a judge, to the case that you're in front of, to your client. There's a lot of variables that are things you can't control, no matter how hard you try. Whereas ultimately in a cocktail, I mean, if you put it on that cheat sheet that you want 2 drops of something, then most every bartender in Denmark is going to put 2 drops of something into that and stir it up, and it's going to be what you want it to be. So
cool. Do you feel privileged that you have a guy like this coming to you saying, "Hey, could I be your bar back?" I mean, that's amazing.
It was kind of an interesting situation for me in that one of the things that we fight in my profession of being a bartender is being calling a real job or having a real job. And here's someone that has the definition of what a real job is. It's like, I want to come over there and see what's going on with your team. So, yeah, of course I was intrigued. But from knowing Francisco and knowing his palate and his creativity as far as cocktails, he seemed like a really kind of natural fit. And when he came on, he immediately brought this whole other knowledge of particularly like South American and, more Southern kind of a flavor profile that I just didn't have access to before. So I always appreciate someone that I can learn something off of as well. We try to kind of, that's kind of the environment that we've tried to, or I've tried to cultivate at Denmark, is this kind of team mentality that it's almost like a group think tank where we all have an idea and, we all have different interests and we're kind of all, going down different paths slightly, but we all end up learning from each other in the process. And I think that's one of the things that makes our menu so kind of interesting and unique, is it's not really one person putting it together. It is a combination. And over the last probably 3 years particularly, I've taken more and more of a step back just because there's so many other great ideas that are coming to the table.
Francisco, I recall, I think it was last summer, you were playing with a cocktail and you had a piece of sage and you found a paper hole puncher in the shape of a bird. And so you punched out a bird shape in the sage and laid it on top of a block of ice. I mean, where did that even come from?
That was one of the coolest garnishes.
Well, that was huge garnish game, but it was also, I love how all of your staff worries about the names and the titles for their drinks, and that one was Three Little Birds, referencing Bob Marley.
Correct. Yep. So yeah, that was I was kind of, I'm not the biggest tiki fan. Like they're not like, there's there's a couple tiki drinks I really love, but one of them is the Jungle Bird. And so I'd kind of wanted to do a Jungle Bird riff. I knew I wanted to do the pineapple Campari because I'd seen that previously in a drink, and I thought Three Little Birds, like an homage to Bob Marley, who along with Bob Dylan was like just one of my favorite artists growing up. And so there's Three Little Birds that could do 3 Jamaican rums, working into a Jungle Bird riff, and then a little bird on the sage. That was a stamp, and just a couple trips to a couple different Michaels and found a bird stamp and kind of broke it open and put it back together so it was big enough to do a leaf, and we had a pretty cool garnish that was it was a pretty cool garnish, and it had guava juice instead of the pineapple juice too, so it was a really nice pink color with the green, which
the contrast was really
it was
great.
a nice contrast.
And a tasty cocktail.
It was. Thank you.
Yeah, it was. It's always fun for me to kind of watch those ideas develop. Because, once we start a menu, we change it seasonally. So once we start a menu, we immediately start talking about, hey, these are the drinks that I'm working on for the next menu. And we'll kick it around the think tank. And I periodically, kind of touch base with everybody and, get an update as to what they're thinking and where they're going out. I'm like, hey, did you think about this? Or maybe we could do it this way. But just watching the wheels turn on several other people at the same time, and then watching this kind of culmination of the Denmark menu, which is like 20 house original cocktails that we're flipping every couple of months, is really cool to watch. It's really one of the greatest things that I've ever kind of been a part of. I really enjoy it.
So you actually have a cocktail think tank at Denmark.
That's how I look at it. Yeah.
So how you have so many people that are so creative, how do you decide which cocktails go on the menu and which don't?
Early on in the process, we'll look at, hey, I need 2 gin cocktails. And these are kind of the flavors that are in the season. So, you have kind of a rough map to what you're looking for. We always try to bring back a couple from past menus or things that people recognize. We have a couple of past favorites that always go back to menus.
Like the Black and Blue Manhattan.
Exactly. That one just stays on at this point. I took it off at one point and it just got requested all of the time. It's kind of become our flagship cocktail.
It's my favorite.
I did bring the Black and Blue Manhattan for us to taste today.
Awesome.
I brought 4 cocktails for us. So
great. Because everybody needs 4 cocktails.
Yeah. It's going to be great. But yeah, so we when I start looking at one of the menus, that's the first thing I do is kind of plug in those old favorites, look at that. And then we'll start looking at the overall palette of, hey, you need to have a certain amount of drinks that are presented up and a certain amount that are on the rocks, and something that's interesting and off the beaten path, and something that's for the more advanced cocktail drinker, and something for the person that just comes in and, typically wants, a really simple drink, so you try to look at an overall kind of crowd pleasing set of things. Now, when we have 18 to 20 cocktails on a menu, it makes it a little bit easier because we've got so many different variations kind of going on. But making sure that you have kind of that range of different flavors and profiles and spirits and submixers going on becomes interesting. And as we're developing these things, we'll start looking at, hey, how can I make this spirit, or how can I infuse this spirit with something, and how can I make this as ours as possible. I'm a big believer in that, you can, once you set up those flavors, you can't recreate a Denmark cocktail unless you go through 20 steps a lot of times. And that's a lot of it's prep background stuff that we've kind of set up between a different bitter, syrup, flavor of agent of some kind. And I like that. I don't want, just to be able to go and rep, I want to have something unique that you haven't came across before, some different combination of flavors that you wouldn't be able to get someplace. And having so many house done things that allows us the ability to do that.
Sure. So, Francisco, now that you're working at Denmark, do you still create at home, or is Denmark now your canvas?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm working on drinks for Denmark. So if I'm looking in a book, it's kind of weird because I think Garry hit it on the head. Like, I was always drawn to the cocktails that had that shrub or that infusion or that syrup because it was a way to learn stuff for me, right? So you go to the back of the book and they've got the guidelines on how to do it, and you're like, oh, like tea infuses really fast, but fruit doesn't, that kind of thing. So I was always, when I was doing it at home, I was always like, oh, it'd be great to have a batch of this, that, or the other. Now I'm kind of like, I like a pull off the shelf cocktail at home with maybe a couple things that I keep around, like syrups and stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, definitely, like if I'm working on something that takes a lot of steps, or I'm experimenting with a fruit or a vegetable or a flavor profile of some kind, it's usually aimed at a drink that is coming up. And sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes, I'm working on something that won't make a menu for 6 months because it needs a lot of work.
Yeah. So what do you want to make first?
Well, I actually would like to try one of Cisco's drink, the drink that he's working on for this next menu. We're still roughing out the name on it. I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, so I've been trying to do this Last Word's one of my favorite cocktails. I've been trying to do a Last Word cocktail that was faithful to the equal proportions for a while. And I tried to do it when I first got to Denmark, and it just was not working out for me. It's hard to get a lot of balance with that. But we needed a tequila drink, and Last Word's from Detroit. So I thought Frida Kahlo, because Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera spent some time in Detroit. And so I wanted to do kind of an homage to Frida Kahlo and like Mexico and those flavors. So I landed on a drink that works, and we don't have a name for it yet. I mean, I think we've got like something close. I think we've got like Palabra de Kahlo.
I like
which
Palabra
means
de Kahlo.
like Kahlo's word.
And it sounds sexy.
Yeah, and thank you. And so I think, and so it's equal parts of grapefruit juice, Ancho Reyes Red, Rum Clement Creole Shrub, and then the Denmark touch is we did a cacao nib cinnamon infused mezcal. So,
wow.
And then we do a kind of a sugar cinnamon rim around it, which I think also grounds it a little bit in a flavor that is maybe more accessible to a lot of us, because a lot of the flavors in there I think are still accessible, but there's some layers. So I'll step back and
even though it's a mezcal drink, I mean it's really lovely and balanced. It's really great.
Well, actually, so I think we're gonna take a break here and make a cocktail,
cool.
And maybe after we taste it, we'll name it, or maybe we'll put it out to our listeners to maybe name it. But we'll take a break here, make a cocktail, and we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
So I'm flaming the cinnamon. It'll have a little bit of smoke, which people like. It draws the eye, and it should play with some of the flavors in the drink.
Okay, and we're back with what's this called? Well, we don't know what it's called yet. So
I like
Palabra de Calo.
I like Palabra de
Yeah.
Calo.
I can't say that. So
I always have a weird feeling when putting Spanish in something because I never know how accessible it will be.
No,
But
that's part of the fun, though. Listening to people butcher words is kind of a secret fun thing for us.
What if you were to change it to like the English and just call it Frida's last word?
so we had that idea. I had Frida's final word, which I thought felt a little cryptic. I had Frida's last sketch. Frida has a weird phonetic feel sometimes to it. So I think Calo was nice, but
I like the word Calo better for some reason. I don't know. Frida feels weird and harsh, and
I thought about Calo's última palabra or Frida's última palabra, but then you really are like throwing a lot of Spanish. You know, when 2/3 of the title is
Yeah.
Spanish, you're throwing a lot people's way sometimes.
That is a lot. So cheers.
cheers,
cheers,
everyone.
thank you. And we have clearly put a lot of time into thinking about this. It's just like we're even dissecting the title.
So I love how you put what is this on the rim?
That is a cinnamon sugar rim.
Okay, so you put it on the outside of the rim,
Right.
rather than on the tip of the rim because
Right. So ideally, you don't want too much. Some of it might fall in. I mean, I think that it's been. I think you actually get like discussion of this in like cocktail communities and stuff. Is do you want a little bit in or a little bit out? Usually, you want it on the outside so that the person who's drinking it can choose whether they want that element of the drink or not, as opposed to putting it inside where it's going to give it more sweetness, more cinnamon that maybe isn't intended initially. And that's also where we do the half rim. So it's up to you if you want it, if you don't want it. I think it's and
You can add the flavor as
Yeah.
you choose.
And I mean, we do a lot of, like I said, I think it's a nice, cinnamon sugar is such a, we all know that flavor, right? I
Right.
mean, French toast, snickerdoodles, all
It's
that kind
very
of
fall.
stuff. So, but I think that's a nice little grounding thing for a cocktail that maybe doesn't have a super, traditional flavor profile. I don't know, is kind of where we're at with that. And a lot of thought goes into even stuff like rim. So, I mean, the only reason it's a cinnamon sugar rim today is because yesterday we tried a cinnamon sugar and we tried a cinnamon cocoa sugar, and the cinnamon sugar was better. So every little thing.
It was the texture.
Yeah, the texture on the cocoa gives it a dryness, but so everything kind of has its. We work through it.
and so it's all about balance, right? Because I've never been a fan of mezcal. I don't like smoky, so I don't like scotch. But I'm learning to
You said that last time
appreciate
you were in,
mezcal.
yeah.
If it's balanced, the smokiness is kind of offset by the other spirits in the drink, and it just becomes this really lovely, drinkable, not overly smoky cocktail.
Yeah,
It's
and I think
wonderful.
as we get better mezcals on the market, or not better, but maybe beyond entry level, that the Del Maguey Vida is amazing. I still love it. I mean, it's still what I have in my house, but I think you get the Ilegals and the Banes and the Los Perdidos and all that stuff that's not as smoky. It still has smoke, obviously, but tend to be a little bit more expensive, and also different kinds of agave, whether it's Espadín or Tobala, and I think it's really cool what mezcal's doing. I think it's all over the place now, so very cool.
So our podcast is called If This Bar Could Talk. And so we love to hear the inside stories and your creative process, but we also like to hear the stories that you experience as bartenders. So tell me a story. It can be funny or
Salacious.
just
I get a real kick out of pronunciations and the way that people go about things. People are endlessly fascinating. It's one of the main reasons I do what I do. Aside from just this fun creative stuff, I get to interact with some really interesting people, and you get to see people at different levels of sobriety. Which is weird, you know what I mean? And you kind of, some people, start off one way and end up another. So it's always kind of interesting to me to see how the public goes about stuff, or this. and I really like when people do funny stuff with words. Enunciation and pronouncing things off the menu is something I get continual kick out of. We have a Oaxacan wildflower on our menu right now that has gotten ordered a couple of times as an Oxycontin wildflower.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah, I mean, I try not to. I get a kick out of it, and I kind of laugh in my head, but I try not to react. You know what I mean? You don't want to, they just didn't read it right, or I mean, I'm guilty of that. I read the first two letters of something most of the time and assume what the rest of the word is going to be. That's all that they've done, and I get that, but. Yeah, so every now and then I'll get a smirk on my face, and I had a guy ask me the other day, like, "What is it?" And I'm like, "Well, like nothing." He's like, "Oh, come on, tell me." I'm like, "Well, we're not allowed to sell Oxycontin. We're a bar. It's,
we don't have that.
So we don't have an Oxycontin
level of liquor
wildflower.
license.
It's Oaxacan." So yeah, that's really funny. But one of my favorite enunciation stories of all time was when a group of bachelorettes came in and sat at the far side of our bar. And bachelorettes are funny. They do some crazy outlandish stuff that individually none of these ladies would ever do, but as a group they just go hog wild or whatever. So these group of ladies came in. We were like their probably third and final stop of the evening, and Ty's trying to get through making them a round of drinks, and they've kind of looked around and they're really wide-eyed in wonder about what's going on. We're smoking stuff and throwing cocktails around, and it's a busy Saturday night. And the ladies like
smoking cocktails, not smoking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we have a smoke machine that we yes. Thank you. That's a good clarification. You never know. So this girl looks around and she's like, "Wow, what are you? Some kind of cocktologist?" And she tries to put together mixologist and cocktail into a word and came up with that. To this day, I have people that clock in and out as cocktologists because it's so funny. I think I even got Ty maybe a business card that had that on. I know it was his official clock-in title from there on when it immediately changed it. But just hearing, the different like funny ways that people put words together in enunciation, I always get a real kick out of, and just people in general.
That's so funny. How about you, Francisco?
Oh, it's a little different for me because I had to, when you say you start bar backing and you learn the business, it's, no one goes to a bar and just wants their bartender to like make a drink because you kind of expect that. Now, sometimes you'll be surprised, but it's like learning the business of like dealing with people, and how people like to be dealt with. And sometimes when you're on one side of the bar, how you like to be dealt with. It's not the way everyone likes to be dealt with, and it's not the way you need to deal with everybody, right? Because it's little things. Like, for example, like, if you order the Vieux Carré as the Vieux car, like, don't put that drink in front of that person and say, like, "Here's your Vieux Carré," because it's just it's not conducive to hospitality or having a good time. But I mean, I think it's kind of one of the good ones I had was actually also she was part of a bachelorette party, but it was like you're trying to do all the right things, the kind of the things they teach you to. It's like when you get like the question like, "What's your favorite?" or "What should I drink?" You say, "Well, what do you usually drink?" So if they say Manhattan, well, you say black and blue. If you say mule, we've always got a mule variation, I think, that hits, or if they say something crazy, like, like a jungle bird, you're like, "Whoa, my God, we've got something for that."
Nobody ever
nobody ever says that, though. But yeah, like, or old fashioned, we'll make them a rum old fashioned or a Oaxacan, whatever. But when you're trying to do everything right and it lands wrong. So with this young lady, I was like, "Well, what do you usually drink?" She's like, "I like it all." And she was just super offended that, like, I was like, "Okay, well, like, what would you prefer to drink?" And she just, was not.
I remember that. That went south real quick.
Yeah, it went south real fast. And you just always meet whatever the reaction is with like kind of more politeness and more hospitality. And like eventually, I think we got to like a gin tonic, which is fine. But it was one of those things where I was like, that's part of learning to be behind the bar is kind of like what works with 99.9% of the people. Like the day that we have 3 deep at the bar is the day that it won't work with someone. And, but so you get that sometimes. We actually have an awesome clientele. I think like almost everyone that comes to Denmark knows what they're in for. And I also think we go out of our way to, we have mule riffs. We have riffs on drinks that I think a lot of other places don't have a riff on because it's kind of like, listen, if you want a mule, get a mule. But yeah, there's good riffs to be had on a mule. It's a good drink. So
I think that is one of the many things that sets Denmark on High apart from other bars is that you're so hospitable. And even if I come in and I don't know what I want to drink in that moment, you're going to help me figure it out. And I saw somebody posted the other day about like a list of 10 things that bartenders hate. One of them was when you stand there and you don't know what you want to order. I've been there. I mean, I'm a experienced cocktailer, but I've had those nights when I don't know exactly what I want. But if I come into Denmark and I say, I don't really know what I want, your question is going to be, well, do you want something sweet or do you want something citrusy? Or you're going to ask questions to get me to whatever, and it's going to be fabulous. And I think that is so important and so appreciated.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, we do try to go above and beyond. One of the kind of cornerstone philosophies that I've always tried to kind of instill in Denmark is something that Gaz Reagan, the cocktail guru, said before. That, and I'm going to misquote him, but to the extent it was, I would rather have an okay drink made by a really great person than the best drink in the world made by a total asshole.
I completely agree.
And I mean, I think that's the thing that we need to kind of keep to the forefront. Yeah, we would do these, crazy culinary bent cocktails with these interesting presentations and these different flourishes and, strange liquors and ingredients that you've never heard of that we've sourced out. But really, at the end of the day, what we're doing is putting a quality beverage in front of someone. And I think you need to be able to, the hospitality side of it is being able to understand what that person is approaching your bar and wanting out of the experience, not the other way around. And I think that's something we really try to put to the forefront of how we go about things.
I love that philosophy. So what are you going to make next?
Well, let's see. We brought over a cocktail that I'm bringing back called the Purple Nurple.
Purple
I think
Nurple.
you may have had this before.
Yes, I've had it.
I've retooled the Purple Nurple a little bit. I originally did not like Campari is a rough spirit, right? It's not like a beginner spirit. It takes a little bit of getting used to. I'm
used to it. I love it.
I know. And I've gotten a little bit better with it. I love Amaros. Campari's a bit much. So, being in the cocktail world, I'm kind of expected to really love Campari. The Negroni is a classic. It's, a venerable cocktail. Well, I set out to make a Negroni that I liked. So I used the proportions of a Negroni. Went with an old Tom gin. It has a little bit less of the botanicals than a London Dry, and a little bit more residual sweetness. And then I've taken Dolan Blanc and infused it with Concord grapes, and added to it Aperol instead of Campari. Really lovely cocktail. I've tooled the portions around with a little time, but I think you guys are really going to love it. I'm going to make one for you, all right?
Awesome.
I'm just going to add that I literally told Garry last night that when I was on the other side of the bar, this was one of my favorite drinks that Denmark ever did, because I'm a huge Negroni fan, and I thought this was a great take on it. So
I can't wait. All right, we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have a Purple Nurple. And we're back with the Purple Nurple with 2 grapes as the garnish. So I can't wait to try this. It's a beautiful color. It's definitely purple.
Cheers.
It's mostly that Dolan grape infusion. So we got Concord grapes and then infused them into Dolan Blanc. It's just a really, really lovely, lovely infusion. It just marries so well, and it just amps up like the great quality in that wine.
That's really delicious. So I noticed that you stirred this cocktail.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know how long to stir a cocktail?
You really want to stir till something becomes completely cold. I'm kind of touching the outside of the glass as I'm going, so I'm kind of feeling with my fingers where that's at. You want to proper dilution is probably anywhere between 30 to 45 seconds, but that also depends on how fast your stir is and how quickly you're agitating. So there's a lot of different variables there. So
How-
I'm usually kind of, feeling where the outside temperature of the glass is. Once it gets to where it's kind of cold enough or it starts frosting up to where you can take your finger down the side, and it'll have that kind of condensation on the outside, it's cold enough.
And how important is the ice that you use?
Incredibly. Ice is the most overlooked thing in the cocktail world. It is an ingredient in every cocktail that you put out. Whether or not you realize it or not, water is part of what you're doing. So not only are you making something cold, you're slightly diluting it when you're chilling it, by either shaking or stirring, whichever method you use.
And when do you shake?
The rule of thumb is if it's going to be cloudy at the end of its process. So if you're going to use lemon juice, if you're going to use olive brine, like a dirty martini, if you're going to use cream or egg white in any way whatsoever, shake it because you're simply trying to get it cold. That agitation then helps it out. And with things like egg white, it helps out because the aeration that you're kind of adding into that is little bubbles that's then, making the foam that you're causing the drink. And then same thing with lemon juice, you're kind of, I think it's oxidation that's happening. That's not the right term. There's a term that's happening whenever the air is mixing with the citrus. Yeah, it's
Sciencey stuff.
sciencey thing. Yeah. There's something happened that, anyway, it's important. Then a drink that's going to be clear, like a Manhattan or like a traditional martini, you don't want to agitate that too much by shaking it because you are, like I say, adding little bubbles, which adds a lack of clarity. You're clouding up the whole thing.
And did you say what's in the purple nurple?
Yes, it's Old Tom Gin, so Hammond's Old Tom Gin, a Concord grape infused Dolan Blanc, Aperol, orange bitters.
So you take vermouth and you infuse it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a
I like that. I love vermouth. Vermouth is
Dolan
is my
Blanc
jam.
is one of my favorites. It's like a clear, sweet vermouth, if you will. Really, really lovely. But like I say, grapes, and particularly Concord grapes, that really heavy, like Concord grape flavor just goes so well. It gives this really kind of jammy kind of quality.
So how do you do? So you buy a bottle of Dolan's vermouth. You then buy Concord grapes, mush them up, and put them in there, or what do you do?
Yeah, essentially that's what we do. So we take a mason jar. Mason jars are kind of the key to making all of our infusions, or where everything starts with, because we're going to sous vide it to speed up the infusion process. So we'll take a mason jar, fill it probably quarter to half a way up with Concord grapes, and then muddle that down. Top it off with the spirit we want to use. In this particular instance, it's Dolan Blanc. And then infuse that in a sous vide bath for about an hour to 2 hours at 135 degrees. Let it cool down, strain off the thing. Voila, you have this beautiful, bright purple color. And that's where the color in the cocktail is coming from. That's from the everything else in it is, Aperol's got a little bit of orangeness to it. But yeah, so that's how that's ended up.
That is amazing. Is the purple nurple on your menu now?
It is currently on our current fall menu.
And what about the cocktail that Francisco developed? I can't say it.
Frida Kahlo cocktail.
No, say the sexy
No,
one.
the Palabra de Calo.
Oh yes.
Palabra de Calo. Yes, it is on the menu as well. October 1st it was our run date on that, so it's been rolling be rolling probably till about, I would say mid-November at least, if not maybe a little bit.
So I have a
longer.
suggestion for that title.
I'm excited to hear.
All right, cool.
I would say I would go with Boca de Calo.
Oh, Frida's mouth.
Right.
Yeah.
It's still her last word, coming
Yeah.
from her mouth.
Ah,
Easier to say.
that's true.
Yeah, but I think most people would be able to pronounce that, and that takes away all the fun for me. So I'm going to go ahead and say,
Fine.
Palabra it is.
Fine.
All right. What's the third cocktail that you have tonight?
Well, we brought two others. We brought one of Cisco's returning favorites to the menu called Spirited Away, and we brought the Black and Blue Manhattan, kind of our flagship cocktail.
Okay, so if you haven't been to Denmark and had their Black and Blue Manhattan, then you are really missing out. It is my favorite cocktail on their menu.
If you don't like Manhattans, you will love this cocktail.
I think if you want to describe the Black and Blue Manhattan, because I've already had that, I'm being selfish right now. So if you want to talk about it and then make us the other cocktail.
No, perfect. The Black and Blue Manhattan is a play on the traditional Manhattan. It is what we call splitting the base on. So Manhattan is 2 ounces of bourbon, an ounce of some type of sweet vermouth, and then 3 to 4 dashes of bitters. What I did was take the sweet vermouth portion and split that apart in half. The other half is then a blueberry shrub. So we make a blueberry shrub out of a white balsamic vinegar. So a shrub, if you don't know, is a drinking vinegar. It's from the American colonial times, kind of a holdover, a way that they were able to preserve the flavors of the season. So they would take fruit and soak it into a vinegar and then mix that vinegar mixture with sugar and make a drinking liquor out of it, liquid out of it, and top it with soda. That's what a shrub is. So we take about a half ounce of that mixed with a half ounce of that Dolan sweet vermouth, 2 ounces of bourbon, a couple of dashes of black walnut bitters, and the combination of those things is really magical. Shrubs have this really great bright acidity to them. So the blueberries, and then it's a balsamic vinegar too, so it has this really kind of bright loveliness to it. The black walnut bitters then gives it this really kind of earthy groundedness to it. So it's this really kind of great contrast of flavors between these bright acidic notes and these really deep contrasty like black walnut earthy notes that I think is really lovely.
It's a fabulous cocktail. So what's the
Spirited Away is Cisco's creation. It's really awesome. I didn't think it would go at first. I was in camp. You can't put a $15 cocktail on the menu because it has a Toki Japanese whiskey, so it's kind of pricey.
I think you can do it.
Yeah, no, we did. It's been on for four. This is what the 4th iteration of the menu it's been on.
Yeah.
So, and as an anime fan, I love the name. So
thank you. Yeah. So
great reference.
Yeah. So, and I think it's kind of an example of inspiration comes from a bunch of different places. Sometimes you know exactly where you're going. Sometimes you kind of figure it out along the way. For me, this one started with a conversation with a buddy of mine who's a chef up in New York, and he was talking to me about umeboshi, and I was like, "What are umeboshi?" And umeboshi are these salted, pickled. They're called Japanese apricots or Japanese plums, and they are about as close to inedible as you can get. I mean, they are really, really tough to make anything work with. They're an acquired taste definition of it. I mean, it is really, really difficult. But what I discovered is that this ume, which is related to, again, you'll see them called Japanese plums, Japanese apricots, because they're in that family. And they're this kind of third fruit that grows in Japan that's not an apricot, it's not a plum, but it's right there. But it's really, really tart. It's really, really savory. And while it's called ume, and it's not related to the etymology of umami, it is a very umami kind of flavor. But I discovered a liqueur that is made in Japan called umeshu. So it's a sweet that retains a little bit of that flavor. And then I've always wanted to do a Japanese whiskey cocktail. So things kind of took flight from there. And I tried to use a lot of Japanese ingredients to try to kind of get that theme going. So we've got a yuzu honey. We've got Toki Japanese whiskey. We've got a little bit of the umeshu, a yuzu honey syrup, a yuzu tincture to get the high notes of yuzu, and a bitter melon functions as the bitters. So a bitter melon tincture functions as the bitters. And I kept on trying to make it a highball because that's how everybody wants to drink Japanese whiskey. But I hate whiskey highballs. So a good rule of thumb is don't try to riff on a drink that you don't like, because every time I made one, I was like, I don't really like this.
That's absolutely true.
And so I went back to kind of like that Wisconsin old fashioned, or that old fashioned that we were all drinking before the cocktail kind of renaissance happened, with soda water or Sprite and a lot of muddled stuff. So the yuzu honey syrup is kind of like muddled fruit. We do a little splash of soda, a little green tea as well. So it reads just kind of like a little bit of a stretched old fashioned.
Wow, it sounds amazing. So we're going to take one last break, make one more cocktail, and we'll be back.
Cool.
Cheers. And we're back with the Black and Blue Manhattan and the
Spirited Away.
Spirited Away. So Black and Blue Manhattan is my all-time favorite.
Thank you.
So I'm going to try this one, Japanese whiskey, which I love. And you don't see many. Wow. I don't think I've ever seen any Japanese whiskey cocktails in the city.
I've seen a few. I think Curio definitely had one there for a little while. I think Seth at Blind Lady had one for a minute too. But it's
delicious.
It's price.
Thank you so
its
much.
price point's a little rough. It's not like it's almost not mixing price. I mean, it's it's pushing the upper limit of what, because once you start adding other ingredients and those kind of things, you're pushing a $15 to $20 cocktail.
That's good.
It's really good.
Oh, man.
So the price of this cocktail is $15.
Yep.
I would pay that.
Thank you.
I'm not kidding. I have been surprised at how many people have really resonated with that cocktail. It has probably over the last couple of menus, it's been one of our consistent. I mean, one of the fun things is, we all author cocktails, so we all kind of compete with each other as to whose cocktail does the best off of which menu. It's one of the kind of the fun competition things that we do. The Spirited Away is definitely one of the probably top 15, and that's including even classics, not just our house concoctions, because we sell more old fashions than anything. Moscow Mule's in the top 5. You know what I mean? Those kind of classics are, but our house cocktails are way up there. Black and Blue is always in the top 10. I think this was in the top 10 or 15. And one of the things that I really love about this cocktail and Cisco's cocktails in general is this really great story that happens with them. When you start to really talk to him about it, you start to understand, all of these like subtle things that he thought about, and these kind of all these different subtle threads that he pulled together into a cohesive cocktail somehow. So there's this whole story that's happening with this cocktail, and that's true of almost every cocktail I think that you've presented. You've had this really kind of unique set of flavors. And this really kind of unique story or reason that you got to this solution. And understanding how you got to that solution has always been really fun for me to kind of watch.
Well, we are truly blessed to have Denmark in our great city, because you guys just do an amazing job, and it's a wonderful experience, not just hospitality-wise, but cocktail-wise, and it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
No problem. We are truly blessed to be here in this great city. I mean, I tell people all the time, I have one of the best jobs in the world. I listen to awesome music, I make great cocktails, and I talk to interesting people all the time. I couldn't ask for a better life.
Awesome.
We're just glad that, Garry, you found your calling, and Francisco, you found your second calling.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, Garry, if our listeners want to visit Denmark, what are your hours?
We are open every day except Sunday. Sunday we rest from 5 o'clock until close. Throughout the week, Monday through Thursday, that's around 11 o'clock. On the weekends, that's around 1 o'clock.
And do you have a happy hour?
We do. It's 5 to 6:30 every day, even Saturday when we are open. And that's $2 off any cocktail, $1 off any beer, food, or wine.
Wonderful. Listeners, get over to Denmark and have one of the many cocktails that we've sampled tonight. Or more. El Gato, Francisco, thank you so much for coming tonight. That's it for our episode, brought to you by the Columbus Craft Cocktail Tour. Please subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Rate us, review us, tell all of your friends. Please also check out the Columbus Craft Cocktail Tour at columbuscraftcocktailtour.com. Denmark is on our tour, so definitely check out our Short North Cocktail Tour. Go online and you'll find our dates and tickets. Thanks to our producer, Greg Hansberry, who also produces a podcast called Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis, which is a podcast not so much about whiskey as it is one with whiskey. Check that out. Original music for our podcast was composed and performed by the Biographer.
And please remember to drink responsibly, tip appropriately, and be cocktail curious.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Skull.